राधना कृष्ण गोविंद नारायण हरे कृष्ण कृष्ण नारायण हरे कृष्ण गोविंद नारायण हरे। पांडुरंगा मोहन रंगा 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 मोहन रंगा रा पांडुरंगा मोहन रंगा रंगा पांडुरंगा मोहन रंगा रघुमाई रंगा विठोबरंगा पुंडरीका प्रभु आनंद रंगा पुंडरीका प्रभु रंगा प्रभु आनंद रंगा पुंडरीका प्रभु रंगा रंगा पांडुरंगा मोहन रंगा रंगा पांडुरंगा मोहन रंगा रघुमाई रंगा रंगा रघुमाई रंगा शोभरंगा पुंडरीका प्रभु आनंद रंगा पुंडरीका प्रभु आनंद रंगा प्रभु आनंद रंगा पुंडरीका प्रभु रंगा रंगा पांडुरंगा मोहन रंगा रंगा पांडुरंगा मोहन रंगा पांडुरंगा मोहन रंगा पांडुरंगा मोहन रंगा। गुरुचरणं सद्गुरुचरणं नमन करो मैं गुरुचरणं सद्गुरुचरणं प्रणवानंदानंद चंद प्रणवानंदानंद चंद स्वामी गुरु मम गुरु सच्चिदानंद स्वामी गुरु मम गुरु सच्चिदानंद नमन करो मैं गुरुचरणं सद्गुरु शरणं नमन करो मैं गुरुचरणं सद्गुरु शरणं शांति विधायक गुरु गोविंद मंगलकारक गुरुनाथ शांति विधायक गुरु गोविंद मंगलकारक सद्गुरुनाथ ईश्वर अम्बा प्रियतनया ईश्वर अम्बा प्रियतनया मन करो मैं गुरुचरणं सद्गुरुचरणं गुरुचरणं सद्गुरुचरणं नवानंद आनंद चंद प्रणवानंद आनंद चंद स्वामी गुरु मम गुरु सच्चिदानंद स्वामी गुरु मम गुरु सच्चिदानंद नमन करो गुरु शरणम सद्गुरु चरणम नमन करो मैं गुरु शरणम सद्गुरु चरणम विधायक गुरु गोविंद मंगलकारक सद्गुरुनाथ शांति विधायक गुरु गोविंद मंगलकारक सद्गुरुनाथ ईश्वर अम्बा प्रियतनया ईश्वर अम्बा प्रियतनया नमन करो गुरु शरणम सद्गुरु चरणम नमन करो मैं गुरु शरणम सद्गुरु चरणम स्वानंद आनंद चंद प्रणवानंद आनंद चंद स्वामी गुरु मम गुरु सच्चिदानंद स्वामी गुरु मम गुरु सच्चिदानंद नमन करो गुरु शरणम सद्गुरु चरणम नमन करो गुरु शरणम सद्गुरु चरणम राम कृष्ण गोविंद जनार्दन अच्युत परमानंद जय राम कृष्ण गोविंद जनार्दन अच्युत परमानंद आनंद नित्यानंद मुकुंद अच्युत परमानंद नित्यानंद मुकुंद जय राम कृष्ण गोविंद जनार्दन अच्युत परमानंद जय राम कृष्ण गोविंद जनार्दन अच्युत परमानंद साधम शाकामिहमार्ध देवकी तनया तव शरणं संसाधं शाकालियनाथन देवकी तनया तव शरणं जय राम जय राम जय राम जय राम जय राम 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 जय राम 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 जय राम 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 जय राम कृष्ण गोविंद जनार्दन अच्युत परमानंद जय राम कृष्ण गोविंद जनार्दन अच्युत परमानंद अयोध्यावासी राम दशरथ नंदन राम अयोध्यावासी राम दशरथ नंदन राम पतित पावन जानकी देव सीता मोहन राम पतित पावन जानकी देव सीता मोहन राम जय राम जय राम जय राम जय राम जय राम 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 जय राम 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 जय राम जय राम कृष्ण गोविंद जनार्दन अच्युत परमानंद जय राम अच्युत परमानंद राम जय राम 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 जय राम सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै शांति शांति शांति. We will chant the invocatory prayer together. ॐ भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टुवागुंसस्तनोभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति न पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु ॐ शांति शांति शांति. We will chant chapter 1, section 1 from 1 to 9, please. ॐ ब्रह्मा देवानां प्रथमः सम्बभूव विश्वस्य कर्ता भुवनस्य गोप्ता स ब्रह्म विद्यां सर्वविद्यां प्रतिष्ठाम् अथर्वाय ज्येष्ठपुत्राय प्राह अथर्वणेयां प्रवदेत ब्रह्म अथर्वातां पुरोवाचाङ्गिरे ब्रह्म विद्यां स भारद्वाजाय सत्यवाहाय प्राह भारद्वाजो अंगिरसे परावराम शौनको हवै महाशालः अंगिरसं विधिवदुपसन्नः प्रप्रच्छ कस्मिन् भगवो विज्ञाते सर्वमिदं विज्ञातं भवतीति तस्मै सहोवाच द्वे विद्ये वेदितव्ये इति हस्मयद्ब्रह्मविदो वदन्ति परा चैवापरा च तत्रापरा ऋग्वेदो यजुर्वेदः सामवेदो अथर्ववेदः शिक्षाकल्पो व्याकरणं निरुक्तं छन्दो ज्योतिषमिति अथ परायया तदक्षरमधिगम्यते यत्तदद्रेश्यमग्राह्यमगोत्रमवर्णम् अचक्षुश्रोत्रं तदपाणिपादम् नित्यं विभुं सर्वगतं सुसूक्ष्मं तदव्ययम् यद्भूतयोनिं परिपश्यन्ति धीराः यथोर्णनाभिसृजते गृह्णते च यथा पृथिवी व्यामोषधयः सम्भवन्ति यथा सतः पुरुषात् केशलोमानि तथाक्षरात् सम्भवतीह विश्वम् तपसा चीयते ब्रह्मा ततोऽन्नमभिजायते अन्नात् प्राणो मनः सत्यं लोकाः कर्मसु चामृतम् यः सर्वज्ञः सर्वविद् यस्य ज्ञानमयं तपः तस्मादेतद् ब्रह्म नाम रूपमन्नं च जायते. We have been studying the Mundakopanishad chapter 1 and section 1 mantra 6. In the previous class we completed a quick recap of this what we studied in the mantra 6. The eloquent description, rather definition or description, is provided in this mantra. Yattadadreshyamagrahyamagotramavarnam achakshushrotram tadapanipadam nityam vibhum sarvagatam susukshmam tadavyayam yadbhutayonim paripashyanti dhiraha. So this is the most important mantra to have eloquent definition or rather description of Brahman, the supreme reality. The God is indefinable, but these definitions help long way to have some idea so that you can anchor to that, so that you can uplift yourself to reach the ultimate state of enlightenment is the purpose of human being. So that which is imperceptible, adreshyam, ungraspable, agrahyam, unlineal, agotram, avarnam, without caste, achakshushrotram, without eye and ear, apanipadam, without hand and foot, with eternal, nityam, vibhum, manifold expression, all pervading, avyayam, imperishable, sarvagatam, all pervading, extremely subtle, sukshmat, sukshmataram, Susukshmam, extremely subtle and imperishable, that the wise perceive everywhere. So God is imperceptible, but with the knowledge of understanding, you can conceive an idea about what the wise perceive everywhere. Means the people who are enlightened, they are in touch with the divinity, the supreme self, the God, as it were. So the mantra provides the eloquent definition of Brahman, the supreme reality. The wise perceive the reality everywhere. Wise understand, the ignorant people, deluded people, lost sight of that reality, God, and they're caught up in the mundane world of acquisition and enjoyment. This is the life of enmeshed and affair in the affairs of the world is the deluded people, ignorant people. But the wise understand, they perceive the reality everywhere. So the how they perceive the Atman as imperceptible, because sense organs cannot perceive God, the respective, they only perceive the sense objects. So all the sense organs you can perceive sense objects, but the self enables the sense organs to perceive various sense objects. Therefore the sense organs cannot perceive the self. It is the subject in the sense organs which perceives. So it is the subject in the senses perceiving. Being so itself cannot be an object of perception. You can't see God, smell God, taste God, touch God. And the self is said to be imperceptible. Graspable, therefore, another definition is worth understanding. Self cannot be grasped through your intellectual understanding, it cannot be captured through thoughts and ideas. Graspable, the self is described as the subject perceiving the sense objects. It is the subject. The self is described as above, as the subject perceiving sense objects, not an object of perception. Similarly, it is the subject in the mind which enables the mind to feel various emotions. It is the mind that feels emotions, but the self is that which helps the mind, enables the mind to feel various emotions. Similarly, it is the self that enables the intellect to comprehend, to understand, to gain knowledge. So the intellect thinks, but without the self, without the Atman, intellect cannot think. Therefore, it is the subject in the intellect which conceives. Therefore, it is not an object of conception. So it is a subject in the intellect conceives thoughts, not an object of thought. Self transcends the object and feeling and thought. Hence, it is ungraspable. You can't grasp the supreme God, the self. Similarly, agotram, self is your unlineal. Gotra means the root, the origin, the ancestry. Self is the starting point. So we have before the self there is nothing. Therefore, self is having no origin. It itself is the origin. Therefore, it is said to be agotram, no gotram for the supreme God, the self. You have the gotra because you have a family root. Therefore, the supreme self that you are really are without root. Therefore, there is no origin for the supreme God, without progenitor, without originating. It is unoriginated. Similarly, avarnam, without caste. Self is beyond caste because caste represents the properties, qualities of the personalities, that is divided based on the gunas. So supreme self said to be gunatita, beyond gunas. Gunas cannot describe self. Self is not having any properties, attributes, qualities. So the caste system, the four castes of Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, the distinction based on their mental temperaments and thought textures and gunas and karmas, their division of labor, The self is, however, beyond mind, beyond intellect, therefore it has no caste. It has no caste. Achakshushrothram apanipadam, without eye and ear, without hand and foot. So Brahman enlivens the sense organs to perceive, sense organs of perception to perceive. Brahman is said to be the enlivening subject in the sense organs of action to act. So, being the subject in the perception, in the organs of perception and in the organs of action, to perceive and act the sense objects and the actions in the world, the same organs cannot contact the subject, which is the self. That is what the Brahman enlivens the organs of perception to perceive and organs of action to act, but itself is neither perceives and acts. So it has no hands, it has no legs. It is just a neutral mass of reality, the homogeneous reality. Like electricity is all pervading everywhere. The bulb has attributes, qualities. The fan will rotate, the bulb will glow, but the electricity cannot glow, electricity cannot rotate. It is the bulb, when it contacts with the electricity, glows. Similarly, friends, electricity produces in the heater, heat in the heater, cool in the cooler, but electricity is not cold or hot. Similarly, the self has no hands, no legs. Similarly, Nityam, eternal. The time is measured like a distance between two experiences. Distance is measured between 2 points. Therefore, to measure a distance, you need minimum of 2 points. At 1 point, there is no distance. Similarly, the time exists in the second experience. In the first experience, there is no time. In the deep sleep, there is no concept of time. Therefore, to have the time to exist, there should be second experience. It is the interval between two experiences minimum. Therefore, but in the first experience, Brahman is there enlivening that experience. Without Brahman, there cannot be any experience. Even in the deep sleep, you can't experience deep sleep without Brahman supporting it, enlivening the deep sleeper. Therefore, it is the Brahman exists at the very first experience. Therefore, it is beyond time. Self is before time is born. That proves Brahman is beyond time. It is eternal. Similarly, Vibhum of manifold expression, Brahman is said to be remains the same in and through all forms, on manifold forms. You see the plants, you see the animals, you see the human beings, you see the birds in the sky, fish in the ocean, you see everywhere the Brahman and Brahman alone exists within the every living being, like electricity is pulsating in all electrical gadgets in the universe. Every electrical equipment is having electricity, then only it will function. But all equipments are connected to the one common electricity within them. Similarly, the God, the Brahman, the Supreme Self remains the same in all manifold expressions. Just as gold is same in all ornaments of gold, the nama rupa, the names and forms are distinct and different, but the gold metal is same in every gold ornaments. Similarly, the God, the Brahman is like a gold metal in all living forms, all living beings. The self is the same in every living being. It doesn't matter what type of living being. A mighty elephant, the Brahman, the Supreme God is enlivening. It is there in the mighty elephant. And it is a tiny ant also, the Brahman is supporting, enlivening the life principle within the living beings. The manifold nama rupas, names and forms, but the substratum, the source is the God and God alone. That's why it is called Vibhum, manifold expression. Sarvagatam. Sarvagatam means, actually speaking, Sarva means all, Gatam means gone, gone to all, gone to everywhere means all pervading. It is a idiomatic or poetic expression of all pervading. Brahman remains the substratum of this universe. It is that which supports the entire vast universe. Therefore, as the waker's mind is the supporter for the dreamer and the dream world of the dream objects and beings, all the dream families, dream wife, dream children, dream flora, dream fauna, dream sun, dream moon, dream stars, everything is fibers and fibers of the waker's mind. One mind projected in the infinite expression of the dream. The mind is the source, the substratum of the dream state of consciousness, where you have infinite expressions of manifold forms as a dreamer and the dream objects and beings, all born, projected, imagined out of the waker's mind. Similarly, the waker's mind supports all perception, emotion, and thought in the dream. Similarly, the mind pervades the all objects and beings in the dream. Likewise, the Brahman, the supreme God, the Atman, pervading every object and being, every perception and emotion, thought of this waking state of consciousness. The entire universe, it is all pervading. Susukshmam, extremely subtle. Subtlety is measured by more pervasiveness and control over the gross. There are the two tests to prove that subtlety. What is subtle, what is gross? One is the all more pervasiveness, second one is control. So the gross body, as the name suggests, is gross. The subtler than the gross body is the mind, the subtle body, which is the constituted of manasu and buddhi. Mind and intellect is the subtle equipments. That is where the mind, the subtler than the subtle body, is the causal body, which is comprising vasanas, the unmanifest desires. So gross body, after gross body, the subtle body, after subtle body is the causal body. This is the hierarchy. So, and the subtler than the causal body is the supreme God, the Atman, the self is the subtlest, that which is all pervading as well as that which controls all these bodies is the supreme self, the Atman, Brahman. Without Brahman, the subtle body, the gross body, subtle body, causal body, they all three do not exist. Just as waves cannot exist without the ocean, the ocean supports the waves. Similarly, the Brahman supports this causal body expresses as a subtle body expresses finally gross body. So this is the hierarchy. So gross body is the grossest, subtler than gross body is the subtle body, subtler than the subtle body is the causal body, and subtler than the causal body is the Atman, the supreme God, the Brahman as it were. So Avyayam, God is said to be imperishable. Perishable means changeable, means mortality, death and birth is susceptible. God is said to be immortal. It does not die. It is no birth and death. So God is said to be imperishable. The physical body perishes at the time of death. The mind and intellect perishes at the moment of self-realization. So physical body perishes. The body has a birth and death. Body is gone through all the time changing. When you are born, you are only a baby. When you grow as a teenager, you are changing. You have a different body. Now you as an adult and you have become old. So the body perishes at the time of death also. Similarly, the mind and intellect is said to be perishing at the time of enlightenment. When you merge with the Supreme Self, the mind and intellect is gone. The moment of self-realization, but the self remains ever same. Self doesn't change. Self is the immortality. The state of birthless, deathless is the self. It is immutable, imperishable, unchangeable, changeless entity. It's like electricity. Electricity is permanent. The bulbs have a beginning and end. They change, they broke, they become vanished. They break. They have a beginning and end. So whereas the electricity number remains ever same. Similarly, the self remains ever same. It is immutable, imperishable. So this is the definition of Brahman. The Supreme Self is well described in the mantra 6. Now we are going to study the mantra 7. Having understood some idea about the Brahman, we get on to the further pursuit of the understanding of the self through mantra 7 chanting now. यथोर्णनाभिसृजुते गृह्णते च यथा पृथिवी व्यामोषधयः सम्भवन्ति यथा सतः पुरुषात् केशलोमानि तथाक्षरात् सम्भवतीह विश्वम् यथोर्णनाभिसृजुते गृह्णते च यथा पृथिव्यामोषधयः सम्भवन्ति यथा सतः पुरुषात् केशलोमानि तथाक्षरात् सम्भवतीह विश्वम्. So now he goes to describe how this whole world creation is emerging, universe emerges. So as the spider makes and withdraws, spider makes and withdraws its web, as on earth herbs grow, from a living man hair grows on head and body, so from the imperishable the universe emerges here. So there are various theories have been propounded by the Upanishadic masters to communicate the origin, the creation of the universe. The mantra provides 3 similes, 3 metaphors, 3 examples to illustrate the spontaneity of creation. How did the universe emerge? Where from it is created? How did it create? All the theories, whatever given as an examples, none of them being complete in itself. For every theory of hypothesis has a lacuna, a drawback, an incompleteness. The incompleteness in the first simile metaphor is corrected by the second, but then the second one has another lacuna, and that is removed by third one, and its list goes on. You cannot have proper perfect simile because the universe emergence, the theory cannot be well portrayed. The idea being that no explanation of the creation of the world can be complete. It is impossible to explain the creation of the universe, origin of the universe. It cannot be perfect, for the world is a mere illusory projection upon the reality, immaculate reality, Brahman. So that which is imagination, projection, how many theories you create, there will be always a lacuna, an incompleteness. Therefore, why? For the world is a mere illusory projection. It is not reality. Brahman alone is real. The world is an imaginary projection upon the Brahman, upon the Supreme Self. And there is a self and self alone. There is God and God alone. This universe is an imaginary projection upon the universe, upon the Supreme Reality. That is what the incomplete theory is given in this mantra. So, the first simile, first metaphor states that the universe has emerged from Brahman, the imperishable reality. The universe has come out of the Brahman, the supreme reality. How? As a web emerges from a mouth of the spider. Spider generates web from its mouth. Similarly, the world, the universe is projected, created, emerged from the Brahman, the universe. So the spider spins the web. The spider spins the web through its saliva. The saliva of spider's own essence. It is not something outside it will borrow. It is its own essence which goes to make the web. This part of the example shows that the world is essentially Brahman and Brahman alone. The world is not apart from Brahman. World is not distinct from Brahman. World is essentially Brahman and Brahman alone. But the lacuna in this comparison is that the spider has a motive for creating the web. It has a desire to catch a prey, to catch a victim for its food, for its survival. Therefore, Brahman, when he creates the universe, it has to have a motive. Brahman, by definition, has no motives, no desires. So it is this lacuna is corrected in the next, this flaw, this incompleteness is corrected in the next simile. So the Brahman has no motives in the creation of the world. Brahman has no desires. When human being drops all desires, he reaches Brahman, he becomes infinite Godhood. Because of the desires, he is not able to reach Brahman. Therefore, Brahman is no motives. Brahman has no desires. The Supreme God has no desires. Has no motives in the creation of the world. This flaw, this mistake is taken care of in the second simile, that the world has emerged from Brahman as plants have emerged from the earth. Now that flaw is taken care of. How? Earth gives vegetation. The plants and the trees all are growing from the Mother Earth. Therefore, the earth has no motives. Earth is inert. It has no motives. It has no desires to produce plants. Similarly, the Brahman has no motives, no desires to create this universe, to create this world. Therefore, that flaw has been corrected in the example, the metaphor, the simile of earth producing plants like Brahman produces this universe. But there is a flaw in that. What is the flaw? So if you carefully analyze, so has universe emerged, sustained by Brahman and merges ultimately in Brahman. The second simile rectifies the flaw in the first, that Brahman has no motive while the spider has it. Brahman has no motive. While the spider, when it produces the web through its saliva, it has motive, it has a desire. So that flaw is corrected in the earth producing vegetation without motives. The second simile shows earth too has no motive in production of the vegetation. Earth yields vegetation. The plants and the crops and the mighty trees grow out of the earth. But earth has no desire to produce any plants. Earth has no motives, no desires. Therefore, the Brahman, the Supreme God, when he is creating this universe, he has no desires, no motives. That flaw is corrected through example of earth and the plants. But then, in this metaphor and simile, there is a flaw, there is an incompleteness, that the earth is inert, while the plants are living beings. Comparing to Brahman and the universe, Brahman to earth leaves an impression of the inertness upon Brahman. Brahman is, God is inactive, is a flaw in it. You can't say God is inactive. God is vibrant. God is consciousness. God is full of energy, vitality, power, source. How can it be inert? Therefore, there is a third lacuna in the second simile as well. That is corrected in the third simile. That is corrected in the third metaphor. So, the flaw is corrected in the third simile or metaphor, that the universe has emerged from Brahman, like the hair from man. A man has a hair. The hair grows out of the head. How similarly the universe emerges from Brahman is the third example. Brahman is the man and hair compares to the universe, creation. So, this flaw is corrected by the third simile, that the universe has emerged from Brahman, that the hair from the man, comparing Brahman to man, removes the impression that the previous simile saying the earth is inert, man is vibrant, active and dynamic. Therefore, that flaw of inertness is taken care of in the third simile, man and the hair growing from the head of the man is Brahman and the universe is created from Brahman is compared. But if you carefully analyze, if you carefully go deep into the analysis, but then there is another lacuna in comparing a man and his hair. If you carefully understand, every metaphor and simile has a lacuna, as a defect, incompleteness. So, in the man and his hair, what are the lacunas? What is the lacuna in this particular simile compared to Brahman and the universe? So, from Brahman, universe is created, like a man produces hair from the head. So, what could be the lacuna? The man and his hair appear at the same time together. That is the lacuna. You can see man and hair, but when it comes to Brahman, the Supreme God, you see the universe, but you can't see Brahman. They both don't appear together. That is the lacuna in the third simile. But then there is another lacuna in comparing man and his hair to Brahman and the universe. Man and his hair appear together. That is not so with respect to Brahman and the universe. They are not seen together. You can't see Brahman and world together. If you see God, the world disappears. If you see the world, God disappears. You can see one at a time. You can't see both. So there is a lacuna in the metaphor, simile of this man and hair of the man, both appear together. So even though the example taken care of the dynamism of the man, but it has got a defect, flaw in explaining the process of creation, the origin of creation. So they are not seen together. When Brahman appears, the universe disappears. And when the universe appears, Brahman disappears. You all see universe, the objects and beings, the world, but you can't see Brahman, the supreme God. The Atman is disappeared. Nobody can see the Atman. The enlightened masters, the supreme realized supreme self, the immortal people who liberated from this birth and death cycle, those people are experiencing Brahman. For them, this world don't exist for them. That is where this flaw is clearly appearing in the explanation of the third example. Therefore, any number of explanations for the origin of the world are always incomplete with lacuna in them. No explanation can be completely able to address the origin of this universe from Brahman. How did the world emerge from Brahman cannot be explained through the theories of these philosophies. Various examples cannot explain this origin of the universe. Always there will be flaw. And when universe appears, Brahman disappears. When Brahman appears, universe disappears. That flaw would continue, and Brahman can never be captured. Brahman can never be understood with the thoughts and ideas, because it is already we have studied in the previous verse. It is agrahyam, it is ungraspable. The supreme God, the Atman, is ungraspable, incomprehensible. You cannot understand through your intellectual thinking, intellectual caliber. Intellect cannot understand the supreme God. Intellect can understand the scientific theories of the universe, but it is the self, the Atman, which animating the intellect to think, to reason. So intellect functioning because of the Atman enabling it. Therefore, intellect cannot understand the supreme God Brahman. Just as torch, using the torch, you see all the world, you see everything in the dark, but you can't see the batteries in the torch. You can't see this with the same light. You can't see the backside of the torch. How the cells are, you can't see. Similarly, the Brahman, the supreme God, cannot be understood by the intellect. So all these similes, all these metaphors conveying the one great message. What is that message? The world is an imaginary projection upon supreme God. There is only Brahman, and Brahman alone exists, nothing else. The world is nothing but a superimposition, an imaginary projection upon Brahman, the supreme God. Just as the gold ornaments and the gold has ornaments, various names and forms made up of gold. So this nama rupas, name and forms of the gold, you can call for Fingers you call the gold rings. For ears you say earring. For the nose you say nose ring. For the for the neck you say necklace. For the hand you say bracelet. For the legs you say anklet. You give different names because they have different forms. All the nama rupa, name and forms are different and different and different. The pluralistic variety of the ornaments emerged from one gold metal. Inside every ornament, the gold metal is same. It has no difference. But the names and forms are different and distinct. Similarly, you see variety of human beings, varieties of living beings, from earthworms, from bacteria, from virus, from corona, to all mighty giraffes, mighty elephants, horses, wildebeests, all variety of pluralistic phenomena of this variety of living beings on this earth and inert objects, all nothing but one supreme God, the Brahman and Brahman alone. The names and forms are distinct and different. So, the layman, the ignorant man, the deluded person, the confused individual, the ignorant person caught up like a marriage party, the ignorant people caught up in the names and forms of the gold. When they go to the jewelry shop, the marriage families, they gets attracted to various varieties of display of exhibition of ornaments. They are having particular preferences and likes and dislikes. They like a specific ornament, they like that necklace, they like that particular anklet, they like that particular nose ring or the earrings, all varieties of gold ornaments. They are so much enamored. But when you take the goldsmith with you along the party of that shoppers, so you go into with the goldsmith, will not be excited or dejected by, attracted or tempted by the variations, the plurality and diversity of different ornaments, different sizes, different shapes and forms. You can see through, you can scan through, you can x-ray through every name and form of a variety of ornaments. He can fix his attention and identification with the gold metal and metal alone. The focus of his attention or identification always with the gold metal. He understands all these are nothing but nama rupa, name and forms. You can melt this any ornament to and change it to any ornament any moment of time. That is the goldsmith's perception. Similarly, friends, the human being, the ignorant human being, the deluded human being, the confused human being, caught up in the variety, the diversity, the plurality of the human beings, the living beings, and caught up and suffering by this variety and heterogeneity of these beings. Whereas the wise, the knowledgeable person, person with wisdom, with understanding, he scans through, he x-ray through with every name and form, every living being. There is a supreme God, the Atman, the supreme power, the reality, the consciousness functioning in every living being, and he identifies with that consciousness and he gets peace and bliss. Because of the ignorance of the human being, he loses the pure consciousness and gets caught up in this conditioned consciousness of human beings of waking, dream and deep sleep states, and then suffer. So you caught up in ignorance of the self and you get crushed by these perceptions and actions, emotions and thoughts of this world and suffer the sorrows thereof. So any number of theories of this creation will not help you precisely define the creation of the universe from Brahman. How the universe emerged from the Brahman, the Supreme God, no theory can explain perfectly, because every theory has a lacuna. Every hypothesis has a flaw in it, because everything has a incapacity to explain, because the process of world emerging from Brahman has no reality in it, because it is just as to understand for a common person the dream and the dream phenomena, dream state of consciousness, where the dreamer and the dream world both emerge from the one waker's mind. So any number of explanations of the dream world, dream phenomena, the bottom source is, it is just a figment of imagination, a mental projection. The dreamer don't accept. A dreamer considers the dream family, dreamer's wife, dreamer's children, dreamer's flora and fauna, dream sun, dream stars, dream moon. He is very emphatic. For him it's real. But the moment he wakes up, the dreamer and the dream family and the dream world of objects and beings, whole creation folds back into one waker's mind, that he can recognize only when he wakes up. Similarly, friends, we are all caught up in this imaginary projection upon this supreme reality. The God is said to be the enlightened souls, the realized souls, given this knowledge of supreme reality, which is that which exists in all periods of time. That is the truth, that is God. From that Brahman is this vast universe has been projected, has been created, and you become the waker and caught up in this waking world, in the waking state of consciousness. And when you realize the Supreme Self, then you understand this is also another great imaginary illusion, a projection upon Brahman, the Supreme Self, the Atman, the Godhood. So these theories, these three theories have been projected here, all have the defects. The first one is the universe is like a spider creating the web. That is the first theory of creation. What is the first theory? Spider from its saliva creates the web. Similarly, the God, the Brahman, creates this universe out of himself, like a spider creates the web. But the flaw, the defect is, spider has a motive. It will create the web because it wants to get the food for it by attracting insects and others. That means spider has a desire, a motive, an intention to create the web. But the Brahman, when it produces this universe, it has no intention, it has no desire. Brahman has no desire to create the universe. So there is no intention, there is no motive, there is no desire for Brahman. Therefore, that flaw is corrected in the next metaphor or simile, wherein the plants emerge from the Mother Earth. Earth produces the plants. That is the second simile or example to illustrate the universe is emerged from Brahman, the Supreme God. This universe is created like earth produces the plants. Earth is Brahman. The plants are the living beings of this universe, created universe. But there is a flaw. There is a defect in this mantra, this simile also. What is that? Earth is inert. It is inactive principle. It is inactive entity. But Brahman, if you attribute this same Brahman is inactive, Brahman is said to be pure consciousness. Brahman is vibrant. Brahman is full of energy. Brahman is having full of consciousness.
How can this inactivity of earth produces a living being is compared? Therefore, there is a flaw. This flaw is corrected in the third simile. What is the third simile? The man produces the hair. The man head has the hair. So hair constantly, coming out of the man's body, human being's body. The human being is compared to Brahman, and the universe is compared to the hair growing out of the head or body of the man or human being. Now that flaw, the man is dynamic, man is active, man is full of life, can be compared to the Brahman, and the hair is for the creation of the universe. But there is a flaw. For every theory there is a flaw. What is that? The flaw is the Brahman and the universe. When Brahman projects this universe, creates this universe, the Brahman disappears. Only universe you can see, one at a time. Either you see the universe or you see the Brahman. Enlightened masters. For the enlightened masters, they don't see the world. They are merged in Brahman. Therefore, both cannot exist together. That means Brahman projecting the universe, both do not appear at the same time. Whereas the man and the hair both appear at the same time. This is a defect. This is the flaw. You see the man and his hair both are projecting. This is the conclusion. So there is no theory. When Brahman appears, the universe disappears, and universe appears, Brahman disappears. The flaw would continue. So this flaw, these defects of theories after theories have been given about the creation of the universe from Brahman will never solve the mystery of the origin. The very fact that the universe is an imaginary projection, an illusion, like a dream is an imaginary projection from the waking state, from Brahman, this waking state itself is an imaginary projection. But you do not agree, do not accept now, because you are in this state. For you, this is reality. You don't have any cognition, recognition of the Brahman, the Supreme Self, until you wake up from this waking state of consciousness and reach the Supreme Self, the Atman, the immortality, the state of pure consciousness. Then alone you understand, like a waker understands the dream is an imagination, not the dreamer, because the dream world is real, waking world is real. He has to wake up from this waking state to the infinite state of God consciousness. Then alone he will be able to dismiss this world. Until then, you have to pursue this spiritual path and gain the knowledge of Brahman to get out of this illusory projection of this waking state of consciousness. So you are not the waker, you are not the dreamer, you are not the deep sleeper, you are the Supreme Self, the Atman. This is what the theories indicate here in the mantra 7. We will continue mantra 8 in the next class. Thank you very much. Hari Om.